In this module, I'm going to show you how to work with iNotify property change. So let's start our work. Let's jump into the main page.xaml, and there I'm going to add a label control. And during runtime, whenever we'll write something in the entry, then it will update the label accordingly. But now the question is, how to do that? Well, first of all, let's jump towards the main view model. And there you will see that we have this username property. And we have already bind this property to the entry control. Now let's bind the same username property with the text property of this label. And here we go. Let's run this application, and in the entry, if I write something, then you will see that there is no change occurs in the label. And right now I have a label on the screen, but because of empty text, the label is not visible. Now let's jump back to the Visual Studio, and inside the main view model, I'm going to add iNotify property change. Well, you will see an error, and that's because we need to implement this iNotify property change. So what I'm gonna do is, I'll simply select this red bulb and then try to implement the iNotify property change. And here we go. You will get the following lines of code at the end of this main view model. Remember that the iNotify property change interface is used to notify clients, typically binding clients, that a property value has changed. For example, consider a property called username. When there is any change occur in this username property, then we have to raise the property change event. Well, you can see that we have a property change event that will be raised when there is some kind of change occurs in our username property. And you can also see that we have a method called onPropertyChange. And that takes the name of our property. In order to invoke this property change event, we first need to call this method and pass our property name. So let's go to this username property, and there I'm going to call this onPropertyChange method. And this will accept the string, so let's pass the name of our property, and here we go. If we run this application and type something in the entry, then this time you will see a label with the same text that we have typed in the entry control. Alright, that's working fine. So that's all from this section. See you in the next module. In this module, we are going to learn navigation patterns inside the Xamarin Forms application. In normal Xamarin Forms application, when we want to navigate from one page to another, then we use navigation.pushAsync method in the code behind file. But in case of MVVM, we don't use this approach. Rather, we have a better approach, and we are going to implement this in our application. So let's jump back to the Visual Studio, and now I'm going to add another page. So let's right click on the project and create a new item, then pick content page. I'm not gonna change the name, but you can set the name of this page if you want. Alright, here we go. This page has been added inside our Xamarin Forms application. Now let's jump towards the main view model, and there I'm going to add a private field of type iNavigation. And then name this field to _navigation. Now in the constructor of this view model, I'm passing the iNavigation interface, and then just assign this interface parameter to this field, so that we can access the methods and properties along with this _navigation field. Alright, if I right click on the iNavigation and go to the definition, then you will see that this iNavigation contains all the methods that are part of Xamarin Forms navigation engine. Right now I'm going to use this pushAsync method. So let's go back to the main view model, and inside this login method, let's use the _navigation field, and then let's call the pushAsync method. And this method will take a page where we want to navigate. In our case, we want to navigate to the page 1. So let's pass new page 1 here. Now as always, because we want to navigate to other page, so we need to make our root page as navigation page. So let's go to the app.xaml.cs file, and there in the constructor of this page, let's make this page to navigation page. Right after that, if we run this application, then you will see an error, and that's because in the main view model, we have iNavigation in the constructor. But in the main page.xaml.cs file, you can see that we have initialized the main view model, but this is parameterless. And that's why we are getting the error. Now the question is, what we will pass here? Of course, we are dealing with the iNavigation, so we need to pass the navigation property here. And if I go to the definition of this navigation property, then you will see that the return type of this property is iNavigation. Alright, now let's try to run this application, and here we go. When I press this login button, then it will take me to the page 1. Alright, that's awesome, it's working fine. Now let's try to pass the parameter in this page. What I'm going to say is, whenever we enter the name in this entry and press the login button, then this application will take us to the page 1, and on this page 1 it will show the username that comes from this entry. So let's try to implement this feature. Well, I'm going to stop this execution, and then let's jump back to the main view model, and there you will see that we have this username backing field. So I'm going to pass this username in this new page 1. And here you will see that we have an error, and that is the constructor of the page 1 is parameterless or contains 0 arguments. And here we are passing an argument. Well, we need to resolve this. So I'm going to the page1.xaml.cs file, and in the constructor of this page, let's add a string parameter and name it username. And if I go back to the main view model, then you will see that our error has been gone. Let's add a breakpoint along with this page 1 constructor, and then let's try to run this application. And here I'm going to pass the username, and when I click this button, then you will see that the call goes to this page 1 constructor, and there you will see that we are receiving the username. That's cool, but what if we want to display this username inside some label control? Let's do it. I'm going to open this page1.xaml file, and then let's get rid from this code. And then let's add a label control. Well, in normal application, it's simple, like we usually name our label and then access it inside the code behind file. But in case of MVVM, if we use this approach, then we break the MVVM pattern. So let's stay away from this approach. Now the question is, how to do that? I mean, how we can display the username inside this label control. Let's implement this feature, but before this, we need another view model. So let's right click on the project and select new item. Then pick the empty class and name it page1 view model. Sorry for the naming convention. When we move forward in this course, we will use the professional naming convention, but right now let's keep it simple. So I'm gonna name it page1 view model, and here we go. Now make this page1 view model to public, and then let's create a constructor by using the snippet ctor and hit tab. Let's jump back to the page1.xaml.cs file, and as I already told you that in order to map the view model with the view, we need to set the binding context. So let's set the binding context equals new page1 view model, and here we go. Now let's pass this username in the page1 view model, and we will get an error, and that's because the page1 view model constructor is parameterless, and we are passing a string parameter, so it means we need to pass some string parameter in the constructor of the page1 view model. So let's switch to the page1 view model, and there inside the constructor, I'm going to pass the parameter of string type. You can name it whatever you want. Alright, now in this page1 view model, I'm going to add the backing field property by using the snippet prop full, and then let's change the type of this field and let's name it login user. Now let's assign this parameter to this field, and here we go. So far we have covered the view model part, but what about the view? Well, we need to bind this login user property with the label text property. So let's copy this property, and inside the page1.xaml file, let's bind the text property of this label with the login user property that comes from this page1 view model. Alright, now let's run this application. And here we go. We have an entry control, and I'm going to pass some username and then click this login button, and it will take me to the page1. And there you can see that we have the username that we have entered earlier in the entry control. Let's do it one more time. And here we go. The navigation works perfectly, and we have successfully achieved the navigation inside the MVVM. So see you guys in the next section.